Hello everyone, my name is Mike Cavender and I write about comics and film for my site, michaelcavender.com, and my work has also appeared on cinedump.com and pophorror.com. You may also recognize me from the Eisner Award-winning Laughing Ogre, 4258 North High Street in Clintonville. I'm very excited to introduce you to our guest, the talented Tony Moore. Tony has provided both interiors and cover art for many of the major publishers out there. He's been a force in the creator-owned realm for over 2 decades with books like Battle Pope, Fear Agent, and of course The Walking Dead, while still making time to grace us with fantastic takes on beloved properties from Marvel like Ghost Rider and Deadpool. He's racked up a couple Eisner noms for his work and has recently been collaborating with country music artist Tyler Childers on multiple projects. Our discussion will last around 40 minutes and then we'll have a Q&A for another 10 or 15 minutes. Thanks for being here, Tony.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Please. All right. So you broke into comics with the self-published Battle Pope around 1999-2000. For those of you that haven't read it, the book is sort of like Spawn meets Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Though irreverent, it's also provocative. Considering the relatively conservative approaches of most licensed properties, it's surprising that Battle Pope shortly led to you working on a Masters of the Universe comic. Can you talk about how it felt to see Battle Pope garner some success and how you landed the He-Man gig?
Yeah, I mean, it was weird to see people respond well to it. It was one of those things like our initial thought, I think, was that we were going to make something offensive that would like get eyes on it and we'd get famous. But like it didn't like take off, you know, so we weren't famous. But at one of our first conventions, we met a guy named Val Staples, who was a colorist. He worked for Hi-Fi Color at the time, and he was coloring like about half of Marvel's books. And he also ran the He-Man like Masters of the Universe website, like the official fan site. And a couple other property fan sites, and he runs the PowerCon for the Masters of the Universe, like fan con, and he had saved up all of his money from coloring comics to buy the license to publish He-Man. It was like, you know, when Blaylock had just kind of kicked off the '80s revival, like nostalgia boom of like G.I. Joe and stuff like that. And so, yeah, Val pooled all of his money together and bought up that license, but he had been coloring covers for the Battle Pope covers past the first 4. I colored the first 4 myself, but I didn't really know what I was doing. Like I knew how to paint. And so I was just kind of reverse engineering the process from there. And I wasn't doing a great job of it, and Val offered to color the covers so that they looked professional, and we became friends and worked together for quite a while. And then when he got the license, the Funkatron was the company that Robert and I made to publish Battle Pope. Kind of the Funkatron stable of guys became the guys that got the villain origin stories. And I did the Beast Man one, which was kind of a lot of childhood wish fulfillment. Sorry, I feel like I'm coming and going like real hard there. But yeah, a lot of childhood wish fulfillment for me because Masters of the Universe was my jam when I was little, and so I was super excited that my first ever like paycheck was drawing the Beast Man origin. So yeah, it was awesome.
2003 saw the publication of Brit. Return to the world of creator-owned books. To my mind, this is where your style began to solidify. These days, I instantly know Tony Moore art when I see it. In comics, many artists display their influences openly when they break in, with many able to then evolve their work into something completely different that nevertheless retains that kernel of the original master. Examples would be like Bill Sienkiewicz with Neil Adams and Kelly Jones with Bernie Wrightson. This is really just a long-winded way of asking who were your main influences, why did you gravitate toward them, and do you still see them in your work today?
I would say like maybe the overall balance of my influences has shifted, but I'd say there's still kind of a mix of all of them. Like my primary like biggest influence and inspiration and everything is Jack Davis from Mad Magazine. I think he's the greatest cartoonist that ever lived, and like all my best moves I stole from Jack. But you know, I grew up in the '90s. You know, so like Jim Lee was like foundational influence. Like trying to learn how to draw mainstream comics type stuff, and Jeff Darrow was a huge influence. Like Hard Boiled is one of my all-time favorite books. I mean, I've got the Williford Home Appliances logo on my arm. But like Doug Mankey, but then also like a lot of like weird indie stuff. Everything from like Crumb and like Spain and a lot of the like Zap Comics guys, like the entire Mad Magazine stable of cartoonists, but largely like kind of the pantheon for me is like the EC Comics stable, like John Severin and Jack Davis and Wally Wood more than the others. But,
I figured Wally Wood just from Fear Agent. That strikes me.
Yeah, I mean Fear Agent is straight up just a love letter to Wally Wood. Yeah.
We'll get to that in a minute. In late 2003, The Walking Dead was released, and that was where I first came across your work. I saw the ad in previews and knew it was going to be right up my alley, as I was and am a huge fan of George Romero. Your clean but detailed and expressive art delivered in stark black and white instantly drew me into a convincing post-apocalyptic America. Your bibliography is littered with horror projects. Can you talk about what draws you to the genre and how your approach to it differs, if at all, from your efforts on something like Deadpool or Venom?
I mean, I've always been kind of drawn to horror. I don't know exactly why. I mean, partially like my uncle still lived with my grandparents because he wasn't that much older than me. I mean, he was like around 20 when I was like kind of becoming like aware of the world, and so he was like kind of the prototype version of me. Like all the stuff that I'm really into is stuff that he had around and I like gravitated to. So like like Star Trek and horror movies and most of the music and stuff that I listen to, like a lot of my general interests are things that like kind of were cemented in place growing up around him. And so he had a lot of horror movies and stuff around, and we would watch that stuff together. And then my grandmother worked second shift at a factory, and so I would wait up late. My granddad would go to bed early, and I would wait up for her, and so I would just watch like the creature feature stuff on TV while I was waiting for her. And
like TNT, Monster Vision?
Well, I lived out in the sticks, so it was everything that I could get on like regular airwaves. But it was a pretty magical time for that stuff because you had, there were still Twilight Zone repeats, but there was like Tales from the Dark Side, which was still coming out like brand new, and then like Monsters and the Friday the 13th, the series, Freddy's Nightmare. Like there were tons of like horror on TV at night, and I'd watched all the Universal monsters and all that stuff, and I got really just drawn into all of it. But yeah, it was like an endurance test for me when I was a kid. I would just sit on the couch and like white knuckle grip the thing and just see how much of it I could take before I had to tap out.
What was one you had to tap out on?
There's an episode of Tales from the Dark Side that's got Abe Vigoda in it, and he's like a mobster, and the scientist has developed a way to like kind of like keep a person's brain alive, but it's kind of like a Matrix situation. And the mobster doesn't realize that he's wronged the scientist, and then at the end, like the brain is like all hooked up to the computer, and he turns it on. He's living inside there, and the scientist is like messing with him, and it just wrecked me. Like I went to bed like it was maybe 5 minutes from the end of the episode. I had it didn't matter to me. Like I could not take anymore. I got up. I was like, nope. And I turned off the TV, went and laid in my bed, and just stared at the ceiling for like a half hour, like hearing my heart pounding, like. Yeah, I like a vivid memory, like it just happened, like it's so seared in my mind. And I rewatched the video, rewatched the episode like just a few months ago. I found it on like Daily Motion or something, and I was like, I was almost done with the episode. I had no idea I was that close to the end, and then, yeah, like it's still a good episode. Like it was. I don't know why it just wrecked me so bad. Like just something existentially about it just really skewed me out, and yeah.
I tried to get I'm trying to get my kid into horror stuff, and I showed him Tremors a few years ago, which was a big mistake, and he has never forgiven me for it, but I'm hoping we'll get back to it someday.
It's hard, man. I mean, my daughter's 15, and we've barely watched any horror together. Yeah. Like, I can get her to watch like schlock. She likes like Mystery Science Theater type stuff, so that's our window in. I'm still pushing, but I still can't get her to. But like she plays D&D and stuff with her friends, and she tells me about like the campaigns that she's cooked up because she runs the game for them, and it's like straight up like Lovecrafty and John Carpenter shit. I'm like that she's about to unleash on her friends. I'm like, you can watch this stuff with me, like, but she just won't.
Well, so what would you say when you're doing like? Do you have any different approach than if you're doing like a book that is like straight up horror versus like the superhero type thing?
Well, I mean, with horror, a lot of times like the setting is kind of its own character, and so I do tend to focus on that a little more.
So like the backgrounds?
Yeah, because I don't really think of it as a background, but it's more of an environment. You know, like they have to inhabit it, and that's where your atmosphere comes in. And with horror, atmosphere is everything. Yeah. So you have to treat it like it's another character because it tells half the story, you know, just by being there. So I would say, yeah, that's the main thing. Like technique-wise, not so much really. Yeah. You know, I just fill the page with a bunch of crap.
All right. So getting back to Fear Agent, then that came out in 2005, and you are credited as co-creator along with writer Rick Remender and also with artist Jerome Opeña. What was it like to collaborate on a series with another artist? Did you talk with Opeña as much as you did with Remender?
Not really, no. So like all of us were juggling projects at the time, and it was just like, it was a solution to how we could keep everything alive. And so, yeah, Rick and I would collaborate really hard on the stuff we did together, but then when on Jerome's stuff, I didn't really weigh in on how he did his parts of it. Yeah, he and Rick cooked that up, and then Rick and I would cook our stuff up. And yeah, that was pretty much it. It was nice though. I mean, because it was definitely like an iron sharpens iron kind of situation. Like I didn't want to be the weak link. Yeah. I feel like I was. I think his work on that book is a lot better than mine. But yeah, definitely like seeing the stuff he would turn in, I was like, shit, I gotta keep my game up. Yeah, I'd say that was probably the biggest part of it.
Were you ever like you would see the story arc that he was doing and be like, oh, why couldn't I have that chapter?
No, I mean, I was never really bummed about like the parts of it he got to draw, because usually the stuff that I got to draw was stuff that Rick and I had like spitballed and cooked up together anyway. So I was super excited to get to do all that stuff too. Yeah.
Okay. I noticed in the Fear Agent trades that Remender is credited for the story, which doesn't always necessarily mean that a full script was written. Did you get full scripts, or was this like a Marvel style type of situation? And have you ever worked on a Marvel style type of plot?
I have, like for the most part, Fear Agent was fairly fleshed out. Like we would have maybe not final dialogue, but like placeholder dialogue. So at least I knew like, you know, what they were saying, because if I don't know what they're saying, I don't know how to, like, they have to emote and you know, interact. They're not just like heads that point at each other. Right. And so if I know what they're saying, then I can draw that interaction and make it feel more human and heartfelt So generally, like, there was at least placeholder dialogue, so I knew roughly what they were going to be talking about. There were a couple sequences, like there's a big like space battle that the script said like pages 12 through 16, go nuts. I'm like, cool, thanks. Like,
So you don't want something like that. You would rather.
it's definitely nice to not have to, do all the lifting.
Yeah.
But
So
it was fun to cut loose. I mean, yeah.
So how would that work if you were like, so you have that and then that shows up, but there still has to be some sort of like, kind of like continuity carrying into scenes that are tighter scripted. Is that a problem at all, or is it just like?
No, I mean, if it was like a real dialogue heavy thing where I had to like worry about like what characters were going to be saying while they were in this like intense battle, that would have been a different thing.
Yeah.
But I basically just, I had a handful of pages that I basically just had to cut loose and make a big like space battle, and that's what I gave them.
Yeah.
Like,
And it was just did it. It was fine.
yeah, it worked out. Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, I mean, it is nice to have at least like a little bit of direction, but made it work.
Getting back to horror, I want to touch on maybe more obscure book from your canon, Crawl Space, XXX Zombies. Now you were the cover colorist and you provided variant cover art for one issue, but in the credits you're listed as a creator. Was the plan for Crawl Space to be a sort of anthology series, and if so, did you have a story plan for a later installment where you were more involved?
So Crawl Space in general was an anthology that had Rick did with a handful of different artists. The XXX Zombies story itself was one that Rick and I were on the phone and we were grousing about, because Fear Agent was having a hard time. Like sci-fi was not cool at that time.
Yeah.
It was before James Gunn came along and made Guardians of the Galaxy cool.
Yeah.
And so like it was an uphill battle, like to move sci-fi books at all. Like people wanted horror stuff, and sci-fi was hard moving. And so we were just grousing and like, what? Like we just need a book that sells. Like what sells? And we were like, well, apparently zombies and tits.
Yeah.
And so we were like, well, how do we make a book that's that? And so we cooked up this whole idea that it was about like, these guys that were like a group of people that had gotten together to like do like an intense long photo shoot or like porno shoot where they were like holed up in like a warehouse shooting for forever, and the apocalypse had gone off outside and they had no idea. And these are people with a fairly limited amount of life skills, and then like how do they survive in that? And we had like a dad, like a Chris Christopherson type dad who's coming to rescue his daughter from all this, so it was like a lot of tropes that we could play with and stuff, but it was really just born out of us like just spitballing ideas, just like I said, just commiserating, and then we cooked up an idea and we're like, that's dumb. It's dumb, but man, like maybe it's just dumb enough. Like
I mean, I think I see what you're saying, but like it also kind of fits into the kind of like ironic kind of grindhouse revival.
Yeah, I mean that was
and like I love the book. Like I've read it 3 or 4 times. I reread it before did a panel here, and it's fun. Now it's not for the easily offended.
no, it's definitely got some, and that was part of the fun of it, was sitting on the phone and just coming up with like horrible shit to put in it. That was like, because like I wasn't drawing it. Kieran Dwyer drew it, and he did amazing work on it. And Kieran loves drawing offensive stuff. He one of my first published things, he had an anthology called Lowest Comic Denominator that's just the most reprehensible shit in a little like gag magazine. And I had a couple bits in that, and that's where I got to know Rick, was through that. I met him through Kieran on that, and but yeah, we were just, like I said, just cooking up awful shit just to see what we could do.
For me it works. So Ghost Rider is a top 5 Big Two character for me, but I'll be the first to admit that Marvel seems to struggle with how to utilize the property. In 2009, you had a short run with writer Jason Aaron that finally placed Ghost Rider in a sort of grindhouse exploitation film milieu that I had been daydreaming about for years. It remains one of my favorite Ghost Rider stories. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that was your first interior work on a Marvel book, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us how you were brought onto that book and if you have any particular affinity for the character? And I ask because I'd love to see you work on the property again.
I love Ghost Rider. I'd say Ghost Rider, as a kid, Ghost Rider was about half the reason I wanted to draw comics. Like Mark Texiera and Howard Mackey's run on that book when I was a kid, like hands down one of my favorites. And then getting to do the book was like, again, like huge childhood wish fulfillment. I mean, I love doing that stuff. And getting to do it with Jason Aaron was even a bigger treat. Jason and I had become friends. I used to live out in Kansas City, and I met Jason at the comic shop there before he had any books out. Like, the only thing he had published was like a Wolverine tryout script that he won like a contest for, and he had a pitch in with Vertigo for his first Vertigo book.
The other side.
And when that book came out, I was loving it, but Jason and I were really close friends when I lived out in Kansas City, and when he got offered Ghost Rider, initially they wanted me to draw more of it, like as he was launching it, but I was stuck on other books and couldn't just drop them. But I got a chance to step in and work with him on, even if it was only like 3 issues, but it was like some of the most fun 3 issues of anything I've ever worked on, and I loved it. But yeah.
Hey, Marvel, anybody's watching, please,
Ghost
Rider.
They know how much I love it.
Let's see. I want to jump ahead and talk about your work with Tyler Childers. I don't really know much about country music, but I do have a handful of Johnny Cash CDs. So I had never heard of Childers until I started doing research for this panel. Can you tell us how you hooked up with him?
So my wife and I at the time had tickets to see, there's a country folk singer named John Prine, who was like a late 60s, or like around the same era as like the outlaw stuff that like Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson and all those guys were doing. And he was discovered by Chris Christopherson and kind of came up with Chris Christopherson and Steve Goodman and all those guys. Huge fan of his work. Really great stuff. And I'd had tickets for him for a while to see him in Cincinnati, and he had canceled because he was getting up there and had been sick a lot. And so we had tickets to see this show, and it had been canceled for like 6 months. And then in that interim, I heard this album on the radio called Purgatory that was Tyler's second release. And like it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I thought it was amazing. I listened to it on loop for like months. Like, I mean, it was like if I didn't hear that album at least once a day, my day didn't feel right. And I was just completely enamored with it. And then I learned like, oh, he plays around Cincinnati like all the time. And I was like, but now that he's like bigger, I probably won't ever get to see him. And then John Prine picked him up as his opener, and I already had tickets. Like my show had been rescheduled. So on my way to that show, I had these little Baphomet heads that look like Steamboat Willie style Mickey Mouse. And I had a couple of the pins sitting on my kitchen table, and I was like, maybe I'll run into him. And I just grabbed them and put them in my pocket and went to the show. And Tyler wasn't around at the booth, but I gave the merch guy one of the pins, and then asked him if he would pass one along to Tyler. I didn't hear anything for like a month or so, and then I got an Instagram message that was like, hey, thanks for the pin. Like, I was checking out your stuff. It's awesome. Would you be interested in collaborating with my buddy on an album cover? I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. I'd love that. So it was just like, I don't like using the like manifesting,
Yeah.
but it is one of those things where it's like, you know, like kind of putting the energy out in the world of like things that you would like to see happen.
Yeah.
And you kind of are like building train tracks toward those goals, even if you don't realize you're doing it sometimes. And that was just one of those things where like I could have walked out the door without those pins in my pocket, and my life wouldn't have changed that much at all.
Yeah.
But the next thing I know, I've been working with Tyler. I worked with Tyler for like a solid couple, like 2-3 years, just on. I stopped taking on regular projects from Marvel and DC because I had enough work pouring in just from Tyler.
Yeah.
I ended up directing a music video. We drew a comic together. Like it was a whole lot of like really fun stuff, and that opened up a lot of stuff within the music industry and that kind of Appalachian alt country scene. That I've got like a lot of connections. Like some of my best friends now are from that. Like my whole life changed just because I
Really cool. From a button, basically.
just reached down and grabbed a button. Yeah, like it would have just been like 2 ships in the night otherwise, and I would have never known what I was missing. You know.
Yeah, if you guys haven't heard that song or watched that video, the one that Tony directed, it mentions Chillicothe and Circleville, if I remember right, in the lyrics of the song. So I'm listening, I was like, oh, this guy must be from around here as well.
Yeah, he's from down around Huntington, and so he plays kind of the whole loop from Cincinnati over to Lexington and all the way around. But yeah, and his lyrics it just hit me because it wasn't like the vapid like radio country stuff that I get tired of hearing.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like
I was like, this is good.
Yeah, it's like real
Yeah,
stuff
this is good
about
music.
Yeah, like it's like storytelling, which is like that's why I connect to a lot of country music is because it's storytelling. Like all my favorite stuff is storytelling. And yeah, like I said, that album hit me like a ton of bricks. And next thing I know, we're working together. And then I got to throw my hat into the ring on directing a music video, and now I've done a couple music videos, and
I got some stuff here about that.
Became a whole new thing. Yeah.
So you designed, storyboarded, and directed the music video for Country Squire, that song that I was just talking about, in 2020. How did your experience translate, if at all, to what the project required? Also, where did the idea come from to include a Chick Tract parody comic with the album?
They knew they wanted to release a comic of some sort, and we were thinking at first maybe like a CD or something like that. And my wife at the time was in the room with us while we were batting that stuff back and forth, and she was like, she knew I had a huge collection of Chick Tracts, and she was like, why don't you make a Chick Tract? And I was like, that's the perfect format.
Yeah.
Absolutely perfect. So that's where that came from. But with working on the music video, it was interesting because it is a similar set of muscles, but like not exactly. So I was actually just talking to Charles Burns about that Fears of the Dark thing, and how like as an illustrator, like you kind of know what you're getting into because like comics is kind of like storyboards, but then there's also like the temporal aspects of filmmaking. Like you have to be able to think about things in stretches of time, and it's a different animal in that way. And so I was like, it's like when you see Spanish written out and you're like, oh, these words look like the same as English words. And then you like try to, it's like, no, this is not the same language at all. It felt like that, but there was a learning curve for sure. But I was fortunate, the only person I'd ever known that had directed a music video before was Matt Fraction, had directed a video for Kanye West before he was Kanye. And I was talking to him about it, and he directed an animated video for a band called The Faint. And I was asking him specifically about that experience. And he was like, well, I mean, you know how to do storyboards because you do comics. And he's like, you know what good cartoons look like because you've watched every cartoon ever. I was like, yeah. He's like, so just do that. I was like, okay. And so, I mean, I took the storyboards, I cut them together as like kind of a rough animatic, just paced out with the timing of the song. So I kind of knew like, you know, how that aspect was going to go. And then I just handed it to the animators and said like, you know, make this good. And, you know, they would send back their like daily progress. And if I thought the motion was wrong or if the expressions were wrong or, you know, and I had like fairly developed notes that I gave them beforehand. Like I had some color keys that I'd painted up ahead of time so they knew like what I wanted the lighting to roughly be like. But yeah, it was a blast collaborating with that. It was an animation house in Britain called Bomper Studios. They hadn't directed any, they hadn't worked on any projects that big. They'd done like some small commercials and stuff. But it had a lot of the aspects that I was looking for. They had a Hello Kitty commercial for Levi's that looked like a little stop motion like figurine, but it had like flocking on the figure that looked like a real flock like thing. And that was the thing I wanted for this video was I wanted it to feel like the Rankin Bass holiday specials.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
And so I was like, you know, I want like big textures that feel tactile. I want it to feel like these models exist in somebody's basement somewhere. And they knew exactly what I was going for. And it worked out great. And yeah.
It's a cool video.
Thanks. It was a lot of fun. It was the most ambitious and stressful thing I've ever done in my life.
So we're going to stick with directing here for a minute. In 2023, you directed the music video for Laid Back Country Pickers' cover of Bauhaus's Bela Lugosi's Dead, as opposed to the Children's video, which is animated. This one was live action. Do you prefer one medium over the other, and are you looking to continue directing? Are there any narrative films in your future?
I mean, I would love to do, I would love to do that type of stuff more. Like animated stuff is similar to comics because you create the world whole cloth. Live action stuff, you're kind of reined in because you can only alter reality so much. Like people look like they're gonna look, stuff looks like it's gonna look. There's only so much you can build and change. So you gotta work with what you got. That live action video had a budget of like maybe $2,000, and I think 1,800 of it went to the cameras and the guys that were there shooting all night. There's basically like a crypt set. I built that in my garage out of it's that extruded foam insulation board, the half-inch insulation board. With a heat knife, I cut out the rocks and the window and stuff, and then painted it all and made it look like the crypt. Those sheets of foam are $20 a piece. I think I got between the foam, the paint, and everything. I maybe got $150, $200 tied up in the whole set.
I mean, I would never guess. I thought it's a cool video as well.
Thanks. It was a lot.
It looks much larger. I've watched a lot of micro-budget movies, and it looks bigger than that.
The coffin was built out of some wood paneling that I had in my hallway behind my studio. I was just packing my stuff to leave, and I was like, I kind of feel I'll probably find use for that. I should probably just take it. And a couple sheets of old paneling and built a coffin out of it. And it was a super fly-by-night,
I would have never guessed. It looks good.
And my kid was a total trooper. My kid is the girl in that video, and total trooper. We were up shooting that thing till 4 in the morning, and she and her one of my buddies who's in a band called the Winetree that I did an album cover for. She played D&D, her D&D crew was 3. He has 3 kids, and that was half of her D&D crew was those kids, and they were all there till 4 in the morning shooting, just total troopers. It was awesome.
All right, we're getting close here, but I got to get a couple good ones in here. This one's a quick one. You often have the honorific colonel applied to your name. Can you tell us what a Kentucky colonel is?
I guess if the governor is in trouble, I have to take up arms and come to his aid. It's an honorary title that the governor bestows on people. There's a band called the Legendary Shack Shakers, and the lead singer of that is a guy named J.D. Wilkes, who was also a colonel, and we were friends, and he nominated me for a commission, and I was super excited about it because, like, when I was a kid, my grandfather was a colonel, and Colonel Sanders obviously is our most beloved colonel, and it's just nice. I mean, because I am proud of where I'm from, and like, I wasn't always. Like, growing up, it felt like a hindrance, and I was annoyed by it, and I was, especially growing up in a small town, being like a weirdo and a metalhead, like, like walking down the street and being followed by cops just because I'm wearing black, like, it was irritating. And then as I got older, I realized, like, a lot of that adversity kind of did help sculpt who I am, and it kind of set the mindset for me of, like, the world is not going to help you do most of the stuff you want to do. You just got to find your way and do it. Like, if you're really after it, you got to take it upon yourself and just make it happen. Yeah. And growing up on a farm, like, that, a lot of that, like, if you need it, you got to make it. If you want to eat it, you got to grow it. You got to find it. Like, and then that translated really well to comics, because when Robert and I started Funkatron, we didn't have enough money to pay people to color or do any of that stuff. Like, when we started the business, like, he knew how to do a lot of the publishing aspects of it. I knew how to code HTML and JavaScript, and we sat down and in a couple days we built a business from scratch. And then we started doing the comics. Like, we didn't know how to do them. We knew what they were supposed to look like when they were done, so we just reverse engineered the process and got there, figured it out. But we didn't have anybody that was going to teach us how to do it, and definitely didn't have anybody that was going to do it for us. So what are you going to do? If you want to make the thing, you just knuckle down and do it. And ultimately, I think it did serve me really well. But at the same time, like, I am, like, growing up in a place like that where, there was a lot of backwards shit you got to deal with. But ultimately, like, I do still love, where I'm from, and I'm proud of it. And so I'm happy to use the honorary title to kind of help, bring eyes to, like, the good parts of where I'm from, because it seems like almost always the stuff you see about Kentucky in the news is bad news. And so it's nice to, counter that a little bit when I can.
Cool. All right, so this is
Sorry,
probably
I rambled a little bit.
No. That's what we're here for. We're here to listen to you talk. So I got one last thing before we start getting into the questions. I definitely wanted to get to this. Getting back to comics, your first project as both an artist and a writer is coming out next month. Outlaw Showdown is a giant-sized anthology book being released by Oni Comics' EC Revival line. It's your first comics work in over 5 years. How did this project come together? What made you decide to take on the scripting? And if you're able, can you give us a tease of what the story's about?
So when that new EC stuff was coming out, I was super excited about it, but by that point it had already been, like, in the pipes for a while before any of us heard about it. But the comic shop that I go to down in Cincinnati, Up and Away, had me do a retailer variant for the first issue. And then, so in talking to the editors and stuff there, I came to realize the editor was the same guy I'd worked with when I did a short for Eric Powell in The Goon. He had been an editor at Dark Horse. And so, I started talking to him about that stuff, and I said, like, I don't know if you know this, but, like, EC Comics are kind of my neurodivergent special interest. Like, that's where I deep dive. And I was like, and I'm a hardcore Jack Davis collector. It is, like, the bulk of my focus. And I was like, and I love that stuff. And so, if there's a place for me, like, I'd love to do stuff. And he was like, obviously, yeah, like, however much you want to do, we would love to have you do. Like, if you want to write your own stuff and draw it, if you want to collaborate, whatever, like, we'd be thrilled to have you do whatever you want. And so, I had been kind of rolling around a little bit of an idea for a while. And one of the ideas that was part of the. I pitched them 4 different covers for that retailer variant. They were all really different, and one of them was like a guy who was obviously rich, like he's in nice clothes and stuff, sitting in a fancy like room at night with a banker's lamp and big stacks of money, and he's like turning and a cigar's falling out of his mouth, and a bunch of like raggedy, rotten coal miner zombies are busting in. Excuse me. Are like busting in the door behind him, and they were like, "We really like this one, but we would like it if you didn't use it for the retailer variant. Wanted to know if you'd be interested in fleshing it out and making a story out of it." I was like, "Yes, that'd be awesome." So that's what it is. It's I went down to Matewan and did some research at the Coal Mine Wars Museum and drove around Matewan and took a lot of photos of just to kind of get the vibe of the area and stuff. And that's kind of what it is. It's like, honestly, it's like thinly veiled union propaganda, masquerading as an old-timey EC morality tale. But it's it's coal miners who get the shit into the stick, basically.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
All right, so, okay. Wrapping it up here so we can take some questions for the audience. Who wants to go first?
Hello. First off, thank you for coming. I was introduced to your work really in the early 2000s. I had just gotten a job at a comic book shop, and you just kind of exploded off the shelf. And going through those shelves and reading all those books, it was your work really kind of exploded. At the time, I was like living in LA, going to like shows at night, and working in the comic shop during the day. And there was something about your work that kind of, for some reason, just its aesthetics alone. Like you mentioned the horror, you mentioned the country elements. There was just something that just kind of culturally resonated. I was wondering if there was anything that we might not be able to expect or see that you felt kind of really brought a unique voice to your work that amongst your peers made it stand out, because something about it just felt really gritty, earthy, and I could definitely see the horror in it. I could definitely see the kind of like music in it, but like there's just something that kind of resonated through the aesthetics.
I think maybe like because like Mad Magazine was such a huge part of like my foundational experiences. Like I literally learned how to read from Mad Magazine because my uncle and my granddad would be laughing at the jokes, and I wanted to know what the hell was going on. So I wanted to understand the jokes. So that was like my impetus to learn how to read when I was little. And like Jack Davis was one of the first artists that I could identify his work, like just by looking at it. I knew his style. I could see like, oh, he's got the big knuckles. It's got like, I recognize those pen strokes, those scallops. Like that's a Davis, and I like that's a Davis, that's a Mort Drucker. Like they're close, but they're different. Like and I could tell just because I spent so much time poring over that stuff, and I think maybe a lot like because I grew up in the 90s and I did have a lot of the same like comics influences, but I also had a lot of like just like humor, cartooning stuff, and like in my heart. That is where I am. Like that. Like for a long time, I wasn't really happy with my work. When I was working on Exterminators, I was really unhappy with my work because I was trying to make something that felt serious and what I felt like everybody wanted the book to be. And at the same time, I was working on Fear Agent, and we had contracted Jack Davis to do a variant cover for the relaunch at Dark Horse, and he sent in a script and like a sketch, and it was fun and lighthearted, but like I was hoping for something like maybe with a little more action in it, and like a shitheel, I thought I would art direct fucking Jack Davis, and he was really gracious about it, and he said something that honestly like changed my life. It saved my life. He just said, "Oh, I'm 84. I just wanted to have some fun with it." And I was like, "Of course you did. Like, you don't get to be 84 and doing this if you're not having fun with it, and that's why I fucking hate it, because I'm not having fun with it. I feel like I'm walking around in, you know, like speaking in somebody else's voice. I'm like denying myself that being a cartoonist. I'm like, because cartooning is a dirty word in most of mainstream comics. I mean, when my Punisher stuff came out, it was, you know, we turned Frank Castle into Franken Castle and got away with it for like a year. But like one of the first fan reactions I saw online, somebody wrote in like, "What is this Fred Hembeck shit?" And I was like,
Who doesn't like Fred Hembeck?
I was like, you guys should be so lucky to have Fred Hembeck drawing this book. But yeah, I was like, you know, it's like, yeah, like I found myself like catering to that mindset of like cartooning is bad. Like that's not comics. I'm like, it is, and it can be in horror. Because up until like 30 Days of Night, almost all horror comics were also cartoony books. You look at all of Marvel's horror stuff, like Mike Plug on Man-Thing and Frankenstein, Werewolf by Night, all this stuff was really cartoony, and it was cool. All of Tales from the Crypt, you know, like all the EC stuff, I think is the best horror stuff that's ever been published. All like really cartoony and fun. Like it's okay to have fun while you're being serious. Like, I don't know. And I think that, like stylistically, I think when I allowed myself to re-embrace that, because that was like at the beginning, Battle Pope was all just a lark and was all, you know, just fucking off. And well, yeah, when I allowed myself to re-embrace that, I felt like I was speaking in my own voice again. I feel like that's when my work started to really kind of coalesce into what I had wanted out of it the entire time. I hope that answers kind of. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm glad you received it in the spirit it was intended, because a lot of people did not.
Hey, anybody else? Questions? I mean, I can get back to mine. I got plenty if nobody else has anything. No? Okay, great.
I follow. Did you get a chance to see any Jack Davis at the Billy Ireland?
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah. And like last year, he had an exhibit. There was an exhibit up at the Society of Illustrators in New York. And I got to go to that on the last day of it. And it was amazing. Like being able to stand like, you know, 3 inches away from the artwork for that, you know, 6-foot Frankenstein poster that they would sell in the back of comics for $1. Like being able to like look at it that close. I mean, I was like on the verge of tears the whole time. It was amazing.
So we got 5 minutes left.
Okay.
Let's do, are there any properties that you haven't worked on that you'd like to take a crack at? For example, I saw a Godzilla piece that you did and absolutely loved it.
Oh, thanks. I mean, yeah, like Godzilla's fun. I have a few like that are like kind of bucket list books that I'd like to do eventually. Like I love Westerns, and I haven't really gotten to do any. Like if I had my druthers, I would just walk into the woods and disappear forever and just do like Louis L'Amour shit the rest of my life. Like Jonah Hex is one of my favorites. And I love drawing him. He's gnarly. I love just like those bounty hunter stories. It's awesome. And I was this close. Like Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti wrote like an evergreen script for me when I was working on Deadpool. They had written me a script for Jonah Hex. And they were like, you know, just draw it when you get to it, and we'll pop it in. Like it's not something that has to be tied to the continuity of this thing. It's just an evergreen script. And like the last week, I emailed them. I was like, hey, I'm wrapping up Deadpool this week. I'll be able to hop on that Jonah Hex right away. And like as I was wrapping up my last few pages, I opened up Newsarama one day, and it's like, Jonah Hex is canceled. And I was like, of course. So that's one. I would like to do Swamp Thing. I really love Lobo. I'd love to just go nuts on Lobo.
Yeah.
Just hyper violent, ridiculous shit. But yeah, I mean, really like a lot of I could spend the rest of my life drawing Westerns and be content.
All right. 3 minutes. Let's just wrap it up with the easy ones. what's your favorite, or what was your first comic? What's your favorite from your own work? And what's your favorite horror movie?
Favorite horror movie is hard. Because it just depends on the mood. Like, if I want something that's a little more lighthearted, I might say like Evil Dead 2 or Army of Darkness.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, really like more psychological. Maybe like Rosemary's Baby. It's pretty tough to beat.
Yeah.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I love that
Still like
Leatherface piece you did too.
it's just visceral. Like, and I don't think anybody has touched that like just visceral thing that Tobe Hooper locked down
And
in
it's
that
all
first.
nude. There's no gore in it.
You see one dude get killed on camera. Like that's it. And the rest of it, it's just like the finality when he hits that guy with the hammer and then pulls him in. That cold metal door slam, it just puts like a pit in my stomach every time I watch it. And I've watched it 1,000 times. Every time I'm just like, oh.
And like leading up to it, like it's so like it's just the kids and like the whole time you're watching the movie, you're like, okay, I know something horrible is going to happen, and then it's like a shotgun blast.
It's one of those things like as I'm watching it, like a lot of times you're watching a movie, and you're like, that's like that was a cool scene or whatever. Like that scene, I was like, that guy's dead.
Yeah.
Like they just killed that guy. He's dead. and it's like, it's like it just felt so like real and visceral. Like that one connects with me the hardest, I think. My favorite stuff of my own work, I mean, Fury Agent is probably the nearest and dearest to my heart because it's one that was born out of collaboration with a friend, and we spent a lot of time, like really babying it back and forth. And it wasn't the assembly line process of like mainstream comics. There's a lot of collaboration and back and forth. And then my first comic, like the first comic I bought.
Yeah, your first ever comic.
Shit, man, I couldn't even tell you.
Yeah?
Like I have no clue.
All right.
Because I inherited like a giant stack of stuff. Like, I mean, yeah, it probably would have been a Mad magazine would have been like the first. I don't know if you count those as comics.
Sure.
But, that probably would have been the first. Like I found a grocery bag of my uncle's old Mad magazines in his closet when he moved out, and I was like, oh, these are mine now.
All right, well, I think that's it. Want to say thanks again to CXC and the Laughing Ogre, and especially to Tony Moore for coming today.
Thank you.
Everybody, can we get a round of applause?
Thanks, guys.